I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships, creates language for what motivates us, and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram is a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado, and with me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
My man.
Hey.
We are again with the inimitable Kambrie Ross.
Hey, yo.
Kambrie is one of the best Enneagram researchers in the world, and I'm not going to get tired of saying it because she does spectacular work. Welcome.
You're too kind.
We are talking about the nines today.
We made it.
This is our typing intro to nines and what it feels like to be a nine. And if you have been told you might be a nine, or if you listen to our intro podcast, we're going to just try to expose. This is commonly how nines see the world. And lucky for us, we have a nine with us who is an expert in all things Enneagram to give us the real skinny on nineness. So this may be the best podcast ever recorded about what it's like to be a nine.
I doubt it, but we'll see. Could happen, but
No pressure, TJ.
all right. Good. I don't want it.
So anything we're saying before we begin in terms of what nines need to hear before they start typing themselves?
I think one important thing to know for fellow nines out there is that nines are one of the hardest types to figure out in large measure because nines are not aware of themselves in the same way that a lot of other types are. It might be the case that you hear some of these things and you're like, oh yeah, finally, this is me. I've been waiting for someone to describe me. But it might also be the case that you hear a lot of these things and think, yeah, that could be me. It might not. I think this is a hard place to land, but it's also a good place to spend the energy trying to figure it out because if you are a nine, there's a lot of wisdom about the Enneagram to help you understand yourself and actually see yourself in ways that you have really struggled to do in the past.
I will say as well, nines tend to relate a lot to all of the types.
Yep.
And that can also make it really difficult to type because you're like, well, but I could be like all of them.
Yep.
So if you've ever thought that you could be all of the types, you might be a nine. So if that relates, you are in the right spot, possibly.
Along these lines, maybe slightly different, is nines have the tendency of merging with others. I don't know if that would affect how you're typing yourself.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah.
But because nines will merge with the personalities and perspective of others in order to maintain the peace and calm, that may affect self-diagnosis, as it were.
I think nines might sometimes think that they are the type of the person that they're closest to.
Mm-hmm.
So like if they're married, their spouse or partner. So if you feel yourself kind of leaning towards not knowing things about yourself or merging with other people, that could be a sign that you are a nine.
But realistically, if you're listening to this and you've already listened to a handful or even all of the other types, if you've made it this far because you're still not quite sure, start really paying attention to this one. That's a good sign.
Yes, definitely.
Well, our first question for all the types, in terms of getting into the heart and mind and inner life of each of the types, we've been asking a set of questions. And the first is, where do nines find happiness? And what we're going to do is Kambrie's going to read some quotes from nines about their own perspective. And that's how we're going to get into this. So do you have any quotes for nines on where they find happiness?
I do. So I have a compilation of quotes on the motivations for type 9. And because a lot of books and things just say that nines want peace, but sometimes that can be a little not helpful because everybody wants peace.
It's pretty vague.
Yes, thank you. A little vague. So the compilation is, I want to maintain inner stability and peace of mind. I want to create harmony in my environment. I want to avoid conflicts and tension. I want to be connected to those around me. I want to preserve things as they are. I want to have comfort. I want to resist whatever might upset or disturb my peace, whether that be within or without.
What you hear there, TJ?
I think the focus on the inner stability is a good way to think about that. That there's a lot of nines that are not necessarily like calm, zen, living in environments where everything is, still like a pond kind of people, but there is still a focus on figuring out how to maintain some sort of inner calm. And that's a really big deal for nines.
Thing I heard there was the words connected and preserve. And there is a fear of being disconnected, of everything kind of falling apart around you that can I'm sure we'll talk extensively about here in a minute. But the desire for connection perhaps could be even as strong as the desire for things to be calm. I want to be part of what's going on, even when the nine might see themselves as a wallflower or kind of behind the scenes. It's also the case that the idea of preserving things is a big desire for a lot of nines. Want things to generally remain as they are. And we were laughing offline about just the tendency of some nines to collect sentimental artifacts. And there's kind of that heart of, I'm connected to the past. I'm connected to these items that have meaning and say something about who I am in the world.
Mm-hmm. Or even our sort of talismans of memories. Mm-hmm. Like I have a lot of junk that actually represents something from my past. While the thing itself is junk, what I remember when I hold that junk is the thing that I'm attached to.
Super
Not junk.
sentimental.
It's not junk, it's a talisman of memory. One man's trash. Nines, in getting these things, in getting the connectedness and calm that they desire, do so. They're in the world. How do nines get what they want in the world?
Nines, I mean, it is about that connection with people and keeping the peace, being a people pleaser. Okay, this nine says, I'm very much the peacekeeper, friendly with everyone, people pleaser, passive aggressive, calm, outward peace, inward conflict. It's frustrating at times to be a nine because I have to maintain constant peace with myself and others, agreeing with others, and afraid to express my own opinions in fear that it might cause conflict.
I want to focus on the phrase there, afraid to express my own opinion, because I think that is a big key about nines, and speaking specifically about how we get what we want. One of the things that nines do is a sort of retreat move, and that can mean physically stepping away. That can also mean essentially sort of shutting down themselves,
Making themselves small.
yeah, and not necessarily like in a woe is me kind of like I'm looking for pity kind of way, but in a I'm going to disappear into the background so that the whole maintains some sort of harmony.
That's why I hear there also one of the real telltale signs for nines. It's almost like the biggest clue for me when talking to people, or what I'd bring up first, is, do you withdraw to get control over your space? Very, very common for nines to have a space that they enter where they have oversight. This is mine. This is my safe spot. And I take a step back in order to feel, at least in this space, I can control and feel comfortable in my body.
And I would say this happens both externally and internally. There's an internal space where they retreat into like this fantasy of what harmony is in a harmonious life, this harmonious inner life. But then there's also this physical withdrawal where nines will talk about skipping school or skipping practice in order to avoid a conflict. That like this one nine says, my sister got into an argument with a girl on my team, so I skipped practice in order to avoid a conflict I had no part in.
Yep.
Like they weren't even a part of it, but the fact that there was tension there, they physically just did not go.
Yeah.
They withdrew away from it. And this other nine says, the smallest argument makes me feel like going into hiding, and I can carry that stress for weeks long after it's been forgotten by the other person. Yeah. But this like physical going into hiding, like going away, retreating, withdrawing from the physical issue.
Yeah.
I think nines as well, the idea of feeling like they don't matter, feeling like their presence doesn't matter, kind of contributes to this like idea of making themselves small, where they don't speak their mind. They don't say the things that they're wanting to say. It's a retreating, it's a withdrawal move where they're kind of going away. They're making themselves small, or they feel small, and that self-actualizes.
You used the word fantasy there, and I don't know that I would have associated that with nines. Did you hear that, TJ?
I did, and I can't speak for all nines, but I don't experience a lot of fantasy, imaginative life. But the withdrawal that you're describing there, I do experience in a sense of, like, one thing to know about nines is that they're not listening to about a third of what you say. And what they're doing at that point is spending that what would be listening energy on their inner calm. So they're thinking about something else that's coming. They're mentally solving other problems.
Right. So that's the fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like imaginative, hypothetical, or like it. I would not use the word fantasy to describe what that is, but it is definitely a stepping away from what's happening in the moment mentally to spend that energy on something else.
So do you, just out of curiosity, do you like visualize things in those moments, or like I'm curious as to what that looks like. Is it a nothing box or is it a something box?
It depends on what I'm thinking about. Usually it's not real visualization. My imagination does not work that way.
Another telltale sign for nines is how they solve problems. This will be similar with two other numbers, with 2s and 7s. But nines can be some of the most optimistic of the types, very positive. When a problem emerges, nines have a very stabilizing presence in the world. You got any quotes on how nines solve problems, Cam?
Nines don't have problems. There are no problems for nines.
We're talking all about how we avoid conflict. Of course, there aren't any problems.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's kind of this thread that goes through all of 9. It's the same with problems. It's that there are no problems and that conflict is to be avoided. This 9 says, inner stability and peace of mind is very calming. Harmony is peaceful. I hate conflict, tension, and drama. I will engage in conflict as peacefully as I can to break the tension and bring peace back, unless I've reached my breaking point and will explode and then feel guilty about it. But the idea of like, even when they do enter into conflict, it's as peacefully as I can.
Yep.
As positively as I can, and just to bring the peace back.
Yeah.
You want those connections to stay good. You want the peace back.
If there isn't a function, if there isn't some type of restoration that is necessary, that would be a result of entering into that conflict. Like if you have a fight with a stranger on the street, there's no reason to ever enter into that conflict ever again. Make it go away. And if there are people in your life that you have conflict that it would be fine if you never saw them again, no resolution is needed. We're going to pretend like this is just gone now.
This other 9 with the positive outlook idea says, I try to see the best in everyone. When I was younger, my mom always told me I was naive because I'd believe others no matter what. And it's that positive spin on everything that even the people that you're looking at, you're going to spin it positively and say, oh, yeah, they're to be trusted.
It's almost like an intentional ignorance because nines are trying to avoid those conflicting spaces and maintain their peace, their inner peace, their external peace, maintain connection. They would rather ignore and even pretend like bad things aren't happening than have to face the potential disruption.
This 9 here says, I will do anything to avoid confrontation or conflict. I will and have removed people from my life rather than tell them I have an issue with something they have said or done.
Yeah.
So it's this like even just avoiding the person altogether.
Yep.
Because the conflict is stressful.
Yeah. And therein you see the positive, that sort of positivity spin combined with the withdrawal that we talked about earlier. It's not a fight that ended in a breakup. It's just a stepping back and saying, okay, see you never.
Two things that stand out to me in terms of just my relationship with TJ, which you can speak to this, is there may be a positive outlook when the conflict emerges. There is also a preventative side to the 9 in terms of nobody is more concerned with their security cameras than TJ Wilson is. In terms of I know what it feels like to have things taken. And so there's a preventing the future conflict that also is there that's not positive at all. This is much more direct. I'm going to put in place something that will alleviate future conflict. Correct?
Yeah, there's a measure there about knowing things have disrupted your peace in the past.
Yeah.
You'll do what it takes to make sure that disruption doesn't occur again. Because not only is that going to cause more conflict that you're continually trying to avoid, but it's also going to take energy that you don't want to spend. Like one thing that everyone needs to know about 9s is that 9s have the least amount of energy of all the types. And they are very protective of what they have to put their energy into. And if I can prevent a future conflict by doing something like making sure I have security cameras set up in strategic places that I never, ever, ever look at. I never look at the footage from the security cameras because that's a huge waste of time. But if someone is going to break into my shop and steal something, now I don't have to deal with the conflict that I did before of not having those security cameras.
Learning from the past.
Yeah.
Past focus.
And this is worth naming here. The using past tools and experiences to give you control right now and avoid the conflict right now, really important. Yeah. It's likewise the case that this applies to relationships. I'm not skeptical at all about any of the relationships I enter into. I'm just ho-hum and like, Jeff, we should be best friends. This is not how most of the 9s in my life actually engage relationships for exactly the same reasons. Yeah, Teach?
Yeah, there's a sort of protective measure. And one of the things that a lot of people say about 9s is that that 9s are amiable, 9s get along with everyone, and in general like most people. And there was even a quote from before about a 9 who throughout their whole life has been overly trusting, has been overly generous with that, giving people sort of the benefit of the doubt. And I think there are a lot of 9s that are like that, but there are also a lot of 9s who are instinctually the opposite way, but we're not going to necessarily wear that outside of ourselves. We're going to use that as a sort of protective measure. We're sort of keeping an eye out for the ways that people might disrupt our peace.
I think that's it. It may be the case that there's some nines out there who haven't been burned by somebody yet,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
may come across as authentically inviting of all the folks. But
Until they're burned.
yeah, the amiableness is definitely put forth, but always underneath in terms of entering a new relationship is I know what it's like for my peace to have been disrupted. Is this person someone who is going to upset my energy, my sense of self? Are they going to throw off the connection I have with all the things around me? Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Boom. Nines connect to the world in a very practical way. Do we have any quotes on that?
So nines are connecting with the world and attaching to things that get them what they want. So nines tend to not put a lot of energy into their own inner life and like doing work to find out their needs and wants. And so they might attach to people that don't push them to discover those things about themselves. This nine says, I focus more on others' wants and goals than my own and naturally lean toward accommodating others instead of pushing for or even identifying my own desires. And it sounds like they kind of naturally move towards those people that allow them to have their space and allow them to withdraw when they want to withdraw and allow them to not face the conflict head on when they don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about energy and nines and why on earth would we pour energy into things that are harder than they need to be? We're very pragmatic in the way that we attach to the things in our lives, the way that we collect tools and people and even set up our spaces. We want things to be easy, simple, practical, and useful. And when those things are disruptive of our peace, our harmony, however it is that we're looking for that, those things are pretty easily discarded. We detach very easily from things that disturb our peace.
I wonder as well if it's because there's no attachment to a certain ideal or a certain expectation. This one nine says, I don't have any huge expectations from life. I just wake up and see where the day takes me. Yeah. I'm inclined to coast along and just wing it a bit. It can be frustrating for the people in my life because my answer generally to most things is whatever, I don't mind. And I really don't mind. I'm not just saying that. So I wonder if it's this like non-attachment, like it's this attachment because of a non-attachment, if that makes sense. Yeah. There's a non-attachment to ideals and expectations. Therefore, it's easy to let go of whatever doesn't work or doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's again worth noting the idea of control here. That nines don't feel like they're very controlling people, but they want to control the space so that they feel that calm, that sense of peace. Yeah. And the tools that bring peace, the relationships that bring peace, the job that brings peace, the car that brings peace, the house that brings peace. We could go down the list of the things that the nine will connect to are the things that bring that control over their space, that calm that they desire. And so real common way to think about being in the world is connecting to the things that allow the nine to experience that. Mm-hmm. All of the types are seeking to feel good in the world, and there's a list we keep coming back to about showing up and being present. And for nines, this list says, I'll become present to my life only when I'm completely at peace without conflict or problem, when nothing in the world bothers or upsets me, and everyone in my world is happy and at rest, then I will show up. Feels like we're building on stuff that we've said 20 times already, but the theme is it's just there. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, as with all the types, this particular idea is you're chasing the wind. We do not live in a world that is without conflict, and nines are so concerned with protecting both their inner self and the part of the world that is around them. And you have emotions, you have things that happen to you, and you can't always control how that actually affects you. And you can't control other people. You can't make everyone happy. You can't stop things from being harmful to yourself and to other people. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. So if you're waiting for the world to be at peace, you might be waiting a really long time, which means you'll never show up.
Right. Well, and it's almost asking other people to not be their type as well, because there are types that will stir the pot for security and for control and the things that they are looking for. And so everybody's looking for things that don't work with everybody else and what they're looking for. And so if you're looking for the peace to come, that would mean the elimination of like entire groups of people.
Right. Which is also antithetical to part of how nines see the world, because part of maintaining our peace is that nines also want you to be who you are and the fullness of yourself and let me be who I am. And if you are being who you are and you're one of those types of people who like to stir the pot, then your fullness of self is sometimes going to interrupt my peace.
We're going to transition into the shadow of this type. We've obviously brought up a lot of the places that nines can struggle. This is actually one of the best ways to type yourself, is to hear language of these are the places that I really struggle. Nines are going to have a couple things that really stand out here. And to get into this, I wanted to come back to one of the phrases we've mentioned, but I think it should be unpacked, and it's the idea of forgetting oneself. Can you speak to that, TJ, and how that works in the heart of a nine?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that this expresses itself, but something that I think is sort of universal about what forgetting yourself is like is that you don't pay enough attention to what you want and how you feel about things. And more importantly, you don't think that whatever the answer to those questions are important enough to put into the world. So there are a lot of nines who do know what they want, but they don't think that their voice is more important than whoever is already speaking.
Where does that come from? There, we've been talking about control and withdraw. It just doesn't seem to flow cleanly from that.
There's this sense sort of at the core of nines that it's not good, safe, healthy, important, whatever word you want to put in here, that you're not supposed to assert yourself.
You're not supposed to have opinions.
Or you can have opinions, but you're not supposed to be more important than anyone else.
Right.
And so if you are going to assert yourself, you're going to cause conflict.
Right.
I wonder as well if it's because nines are so sensitive to not feeling important that they don't want to do that to other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't want other people to not feel important. Therefore, they will withdraw. They will not speak their mind. They will not say things because they want other people to feel important because they can't. It's almost like a vicarious, living vicariously.
Yeah. And also that nines are so good at seeing other people's perspective and understanding other people's perspectives. Like nines can see both sides of arguments. Nines can the idea of walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I've never understood why that's something that has to be hammered home for so many people, because I get it intuitively, and I always have. I can see the other side so easily. And me asserting myself, I don't ever want that to diminish someone else's self.
I think it also is what you're looking at currently. Like in bowling, you look at the pins if you want to hit them. And when you're driving, you look forward when you want to go forward. You look backward when you want to look backward. Yeah. So if you, like with twos, if you're looking at everybody else's needs, you're not looking at your own needs.
Yep.
With nines, you're looking at everybody else's perspective and their opinions, so you're not looking at your own.
Right.
Another element to nines on this front that we haven't mentioned is that nines actually experience an underlying feeling of anger, and that can spill out in very awkward bursts as opposed to some of the other types who will be very direct with their anger. Mm-hmm. And when it spills out, that can create situations, conflict that is obviously, as we've said, the thing that nines are trying to avoid most. And so I wonder if there isn't something here in terms of self-neglect and forgetting of self comes out of, I know what it's like when I actually advocate for myself strongly and it comes out in these bursts that, aren't enjoyable.
And then cause issues.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if that...
Maybe it's the results of them.
I think, there's certainly part of that. It's all tied together, certainly.
I mean, it's like the Hulk. There's this boiling thing trying to come out under the surface. And when it comes out, it destroys. Mm-hmm. And you don't want what that result is going to be.
And it's uncontrollable as well.
Ooh, uncontrollable.
And if you want to hear more of this, do look up our MCU deep dive, which was one of our first set of podcasts. We do a fantastic job talking through the inner life of the Hulk.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that people talk about nines and anger, or sleep to it, unaware of it, blah, blah, blah. I have never been unaware of my anger. It has always been something that I don't have control over. And so I'm afraid of it. I hide it. I push it down. I do everything I can. This is part of maintaining my peace, is that if I let my anger out, I'm going to destroy some of the things in my life and create conflict.
All of the types experience kind of a shadow in their heart and minds. And for nines, the ideas that commonly are talked about are sloth and indolence. Do you have any quotes on that, Kambrie?
I do. This 9 says, I can be too complacent. I am a procrastinator, but once I get going, I have a hard time stopping. I can be stubborn as a mule. I want a strong sense of my identity, but I usually feel lost or asleep. I have to do a lot of self-work in order to find myself. Individuality is important to me, but I don't want to be assertive. I will likely do everything in my power to blend in, even if I crave autonomy. Numbing out is my superpower.
There's a lot of good stuff there for nines. There's an undercurrent within this about what sloth really is. So you can easily think of, like, we characterize the idea of slothfulness as just being lazy.
Or
but
tired,
it's not that. It's
sleeping a lot.
Yeah, we do have that. It's present. But sloth, more importantly, is not caring about the things that are important and not putting energy into the things that need to get done. A good way that I like to think about this is that if you put a ball of necklace chains in front of me, and like they're all knotted up, and tell me that I need to unknot these chains, I will start doing that and not stop till it's done, regardless of what things I'm supposed to be doing at that point. That is sloth, because I'm not putting my energy into the things that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm essentially shutting off my brain and doing this other thing that's totally unimportant.
That moves into the mind for nines, and the word indolence is good here. It's that idea that you are intentionally trying to escape painful experiences, and that can be done with a cup full of necklaces or any other thing that might be irrelevant at the time, but will remove you from, any of the conflicts that you may be seeking to avoid.
So sorry, this might be a segue, but nature versus nurture on what makes our type our type. I personally think there's a blend, but I wonder if on the nature side of things, there's a neurodivergence in 4, 5s, and 9s where this inability to prioritize tasks correctly due to like lack of serotonin naturally in the brain. So like I think it might be worthwhile to look into that if you are feeling like lost, asleep, apathetic, sloth. If you're feeling these things that actually also, in addition to this being hard for you already due to your Enneagram type, but also it might, like you might need serotonin. You might need like medicated help.
So are you telling me that I have a task to complete now? Come on. I have to do
You have
something?
to go, you have to call the doctor, make an appointment.
Sounds exhausting.
I'm really excited for the next 20 years of Enneagram study to really get into the science and brain chemistry. I'm sure it will.
I am too. So much. I'm so interested in all of that.
I can say that there's nobody that likes weed more than 9s.
Ooh, because it's a number.
There's a...
Would you say alcohol as well? Because it's numbing.
I think that we can put weed and alcohol and cups full of chains and
Laughing gas.
It's all the same thing.
Trips to the dentist.
basically so the word that we're looking for is narcotizing, and 9s are very, very good at this thing that is narcotizing, and it's essentially like entering into an activity or space where we do not have to engage anything else. So video games are narcotizing.
Phones.
The couch potato
Social
stereotype
media.
is a narcotization. Phones, social media, these things, all people have the capacity for narcotization. 9s excel at it.
It's a superpower.
And it does not necessarily mean even these kinds of activities. I know 9s who are extremely active people who get a lot of stuff done, who do a lot of different kinds of things. But again, it's not doing the things that are important. It's doing these things that essentially they don't have to spend energy on because it shuts off those parts of their brain. It's still narcotization. If what you love to do that you don't have to think about ever is paint, and you spend way too much time painting when you should be doing something else, you're narcotizing.
Interesting, yeah.
And if you have a habit of doing that in your life, you might be a 9.
You might be a 9-if.
That ends up being the shadow of this type, but obviously those of us who love 9s know that 9s bring so much into the world. What are some of the strengths that really come forth from type 9?
I love that 9s are so chill, like genuinely just so chill, and are like just this grounding presence where you know that you're not going to be judged. You know that you're not going to be like, they're not going to throw really intense things your way all the time. Just a very calming presence. 9s also have the superpower of seeing different perspectives at once and being able to see the whole, like zoom out and see the whole network of opinions and perspectives and how they bridge together, how they can be harmonized, how they can come to like a bridging between conflicts. That's amazing. Especially today when there's so many bold, big opinions with social media, everybody's sharing their opinion about every single thing. And 9s being able to bridge the gap on those things is really needed, especially in today's day.
Yeah, the ability to see multiple perspectives also means that you can sort of communicate the perspective from each side.
Yeah.
And that's like the nines are sometimes called peacemakers or mediators. And it's because of this ability to, like you said, bridge the gap, but essentially explain what each side is thinking in a way that each side can understand.
Ooh, in their own language.
Yeah.
I love that.
Building on that, there is, I think, the awareness of the value of others. It's not just their perspective, but even the ability to see why other people matter, why other people's presence matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a quote from a 9. They say, "I am good at encouraging others and really listening to what people have to say. I feel like I have a big heart and I enjoy making those I love feel accepted and appreciated." So like genuinely helping people see that they matter. Mm-hmm. 9s are great at that.
So there's so many, there are a lot of things about 9ness that seem so much like other types, particularly 2s. Mm-hmm. And part of the being able to see other perspectives and whatnot, it also means that 9s can anticipate the needs of other people because their perspective is on what other people see, how other people think and feel, and they're not so much focused inward. They see so much about what other people want and desire, and can help accomplish, help serve other people in that way, and do it without an agenda. Like the goal is to create peace and to spread and share peace. So unlike some other types, 9s can be serving to other people for that reason alone.
Mm-hmm. That's really good.
Lastly, for me, and this might be my type, but I imagine there's a handful of types that actually really are drawn to 9s for this reason, is 9s exhibit a ton of composure and emotional stability. Mm-hmm. And it's an understated value that often 9s don't actually see in themselves, how foundational their presence actually is in the lives of neurotic, especially thinking or oppressed types.
Another strength that I'll mention, a lot of people might think that it's a bad thing that 9s don't necessarily like text back right away. I love it. I love that 9s might not respond right away because it gives me permission to do that.
Them.
No, it gives me permission.
You withdrawn types.
I'm so awful at like texting back or getting back to people. And so when 9s do that back to me, I'm like, you are my people, because I feel accepted and I feel like I can do that without like being too hard on myself, because I am hard on myself about it. But with 9s, I feel like I'm just with people that get it, you know?
You might be a 9 if you don't respond to text because you are controlling the conversation by just not responding.
Well, as part of that, like there's things to be said about this. It's passive aggressive manipulation, blah blah blah, and it's laziness and all the things. But also, I think that there's something to be said about the way that 9s in this, they have the ability to slow things down when it needs to be slowed down. There are a lot of types that are moving, and someone needs to stop them every once in a while. Yes. We live in a very fast-paced world, and you can find an uncountable amount of resources about how to slow down your life. And one of the best ways that you could do that is become really close with a 9.
Love that.
For the action addicted among us, we call that delaying, and it's 9's favorite tactic.
Yes.
It's great.
It's amazing.
No, I love it.
No, I do think that can be a real strength. When it's just like everything, it's a tool. It's a way that 9s are in the world, and it can be used wisely. It can also be used in ways that are self-serving, and just understanding that that's a tool that 9s can very easily, cleanly, and effectively use, and that it needs to be used well in relationship just needs to be known.
I will say, as a broader, like more general way of saying it as well, 9s will give you space. Mm-hmm. which a lot of people very much, myself included, very much appreciate. Where as well, like if a 9 cancels something, both of you are like happy. You're like, okay, like maybe I didn't want to go anyways, or maybe I didn't want to go to this thing anyways, or you don't feel as bad canceling because they're like, it's cool, I didn't really want to do it anyways. And so it gives permission for the people that, I mean, introverts mainly as well, that you just don't, you're allowed to have space and you're allowed to take mental health days. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to say, I'm not feeling up to it today, and they get it.
One last real positive on 9s that may not be intuitive to them, but everyone else sees, is how warm the vast majority of 9s are. It's not a warm like 2s have where it's, I'm here to help you, to serve you, here's some brownies. 9's presence is a warm presence that can easily invite others.
This is a safe space.
Yeah,
Yes.
there it is.
Yeah.
Bang. We always end these, summing everything up, with statements that I've already teased. You might be a 9 if. You might be a 9 if you love to pocket veto texts.
Oh, Pocket Veto. It's the best. Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
I wish you could mark text unread. That would be like, that needs to be a thing.
I do not understand why people have the red turned on.
No chance I'm putting that on my phone. Never.
I don't get it. I don't want anyone to ever know that I've read my text.
I have it because I like to see other people. I like to see when other people have read my text. So I guess for me, it's like you do what you want others to do.
You treat other people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
I get it, and I completely disagree.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that. You might be a 9 if you say things like, I'm not sure. I have no idea. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Whatever. It's cool. It's not a problem. It's fine. It's no big deal.
No worries.
No worries.
No worries.
No worries.
You might be a 9 if everything that Bob Marley sings about is just the constant theme going on in your heart.
Just your jam.
Everything, every little thing is going to be all right.
You might be a 9 if you go with someone else's choices regarding plans because you don't want to rock the boat or be an inconvenience to other people.
Or if you legitimately don't care.
You might be a 9 if while you're driving and somebody cuts you off, you think, oh, maybe they were rushing to the hospital or maybe their child is sick, instead of being like, what a jerk.
Well,
Why would he do that?
You'd have the anger reaction first and then say, no, maybe there's a legitimate reason. It's fine.
I need that in my life. I need that.
One of my favorite details about 9s, you might be a 9 if you are highly accomplished and your spouse thinks you're lazy.
Unpack that.
I know so many 9s who are business owners that have created fantastic things. I got a 9 friend who's a full-time teacher, owns a brewery, has gutted his house to the studs and rebuilt it. And his wife, I'm positive, thinks he's lazy.
What?
And it's because of the posh. It's the way of being in the world. And it's also the case.
Yeah, because you don't always have to constantly be moving, which is perceived as laziness.
You might be a 9 if you really need a nap right now.
You feel tired from self-introspection. You might be a 9 if you go with the flow and can blend in easily with many different crowds.
You might be a 9 if you feel upset about not being recognized for work that you do. And then when you do get recognized, don't know how to respond.
That's a good one.
On the work side, you might be a 9 if you're naturally attracted to jobs where you are indispensable and can't be fired very easily.
You might be a 9 if you're okay staying with the same company for very long periods of time when other people would move to a different company.
Oh, we haven't talked about change.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah,
You might be a 9 if you hate change. Right there.
I just hate change.
You might be a 9 if you're super, super sentimental.
Keeping all the keepsakes. You might be a 9 if you have a really hard time throwing tools away that might be useful sometime in the next 22 years.
Or for your future kids or your grandkids.
Let's expand that to all things. Just anything that you think might have a function and you have a hard time throwing it away because it might be useful someday.
Might be a 9 if you have comfort items.
Yeah.
This thing is 82 years old and a little smelly, but
it's my thing.
I have a pillow that's useless. Completely useless as a pillow. It's the lumpiest, nastiest, and I've always had it, and I have it for that reason.
well, there you go. We can end on the pillow. Well, I think we did well. You got anything else, TJ?
I got nothing. I'm ready to sleep.
He's TJ Wilson. He's officially awesome. And Kambrie, as always, is a huge pleasure talking to Enneagram with you.
Well, thanks for having me on.
And I'm Jeff Cook, and who you aren't isn't interesting. Be who you are. You will set the world on fire. Hey, one last thing, which I forgot to say. If you really got into this and you've discovered I'm a 9, we have a huge catalog of podcasts. Many of them are topical. And if they're topical, we will talk about 9s. If there's numbers in them, a lot of them are specific deep dives into 9s. So if you want to go see our basics on 9s, it's about 2 years ago, or we've done a handful of podcasts that are just specifically about the inner life of 9s. Find those, good stuff. Otherwise, reach out to us on Instagram or give us some stars or a review on your podcasting platform of choice. Let us know that our presence matters in your life. That would be a great good for us. Other than that, this is the only one of these typing numbers that I actually ended with, hey, give us some stars. So actually, if you're one of the other types and you just listen to all of them, would you go give us some stars? We need more stars. We like stars.
Golden ones especially.
Especially the gold. And that's what I got. So, yeah, be who you are.
Morning will come, burning will